Well, welcome everyone. I'm grateful that you are chiming in to see this today, this month's October Zoom. And I thought it'd be nice to have kind of a fall picture behind us. It's from Arizona, but here we don't have fall until October, or I'm sorry, November. Don't have any fall leaves from here yet in Louisiana. So I wanted to start out today with a story that happened to me. And so I thought this was very helpful to kind of get us started in this subject that we're going to be talking about today. So the story is that I remember one of the last times that I dealt with having a bloated stomach and kind of intestinal pain and things like that. And I was helping my husband out. He was a teacher, and I was helping a friend. Both of us had a good friend that was part of the cheerleading squad, and she helped run it, and she was a teacher there at the school. And so we were helping her with tryouts. So I had gone and I had eaten something there and helped with the tryouts. Well, at the end, I was really in pain, as well, probably one of the severe pains I'd ever had. So I went home to my mom's house, and I just remember laying down on the floor and just, massaging my stomach, letting the gas out, taking some herbs that she gave me that would be helpful. And I kind of remember my mom doing the same thing. And I'm like, Kai, we both have this issue. And she obviously would help me know what to do and things like that. But I realized at that point that this may be a generational issue, that we both have digestional issues that we need to deal with. And a lot of times with generational issues, there is a belief or an emotional or a non-physical component of that. And so kind of the fact that I had been a cheerleader and I was helping with cheerleading, it made me think that maybe there was some kind of a belief of, I'm not enough. Maybe I'm not pretty enough, thin enough, or beautiful enough like these girls, because I was older now. And so that kind of set me on a quest to find out what are the answers to healing this generational issue that we have. So I'm Jody Colegrove, and my vision for doing these Zooms and being a quantum techniques practitioner is that I want to help people know there's a way to heal that is safe, peaceful, and God-driven. My mission is for you to have the freedom to choose your God-given way to take care of your health. That means getting better sleep, enjoying good digestion, feeling happy and joyful. And that's only kind of the beginning, because when you connect your mind, body, and spirit, and they all come together, then you're able to live the life that you deserve and you do desire. And you no longer have to live disconnected and things not working and things not going right. So like I said, I'm a healing practitioner, and I do several modalities of energy medicine, muscle testing, EFT, and quantum techniques. And I help people get their health and happiness back over the last 15 plus years. And I work with people that have digestion, sleep issues, food toxins, allergies, diabetes, hypertension, anxiety, fibromyalgia, weight issues, dealing with traumas, relationships, and those are just to name a few. It's pretty much, a lot of times we get started on the basics, like digestion and sleep, and then it's like, ooh, well, if that worked, well, maybe about this that I've had for a while. And so we kind of morph into helping you, your family, your pets with the health issues that you have. Well, I appreciate you joining with me today and wanting to learn more about how to take care of your health and happiness. All right, so let's get started. So the things that I want to talk about today is the fact that maybe you have been aware or had thought about that maybe you have a generational pattern that's running in your life. Okay, and so I'd like to see the raise of hands whether you have had something like that you're aware that, hey, this is something that I've noticed is a repeating pattern. It could be both physical, it could be non-physical in your life. And so these can be illnesses, behaviors, thought patterns, which I find is very fascinating, that maybe your dad had a specific thought pattern, but then they transferred to you. And, a lot of times we live with that and we kind of know it makes sense. But then when you realize maybe it's a generational thing that, your dad's dad had that, and maybe his dad had that. I find that fascinating. And I find it also fascinating that we can step in and say, okay, we no longer want that to repeat, and give that to our our children. So some of the things to think about when you're thinking about what are examples of generational issues is, are there family beliefs like I'm a failure, I need to be in control, I'm not good enough, the world's not safe. Maybe there's some financial problems like I'll never have enough money, I can't save money, or what I get I'll lose it. Those kind of different financial beliefs or values around money. But maybe behavior issues like OCD, ADHD, or violence. There could be addictions like smoking, drinking, or drugs. There's also, the bigger diseases like hypertension and cancer, arthritis, diabetes, Alzheimer's. So all of those things kind of make up examples of how a generational issue can get passed down through the generations. So what I'm going to be, what I'm going to be describing today is what to do when you kind of discover that. I have a little tickle in my throat, so I've got my tea next to me if I need to, so bear with me. So the first one is we want to identify what a generational issue is. So I always slow down because I don't say it necessarily great. So it's called microtumorism. Okay, and hopefully I'm saying that correctly. But that's where DNA is passed down at birth and also at conception. Okay, and so example that I have found and where this really came to roost in my own life is that when I was pregnant with my son and gave birth, I remember at about 8-9 months, he was playing outside. It was April. And right about that time, these wonderful ponderosa trees that you see in the background here, they drop this like little yellow powder everywhere. And then unfortunately in May or April, May, the winds come up and then they blow it everywhere. So you have to make sure your windows are closed. And by about May, middle of May, you can wash it down. It goes away. It's not a big deal. But that pollen, I had been around and lived around these trees since I was like 3. Never had a problem, not a big deal. Well, I remember my son playing on the front porch with the hose, and we were all out there together playing. Well, the next day, he and I kind of came down kind of like with the stuffy nose and, that kind of thing. We discovered that we both had an allergy to this ponderosa pollen, but I had never had that before. Well, guess who did? My husband. He had had a ponderosa pine pollen allergy for since college when he was 17. And so he basically what he did is when we got pregnant, then he passed his DNA to me. And so I got the allergy and my son got the allergy. So with that information, what we can find out is say, okay, what organs, glands, and tissues is it impacting? So for us, it was the mucosal lining, the sinuses, but it could be something else, depending on what the issue is. Like for your liver, if you have anger issues in the family gets passed down, or a sense of failure, then it may be the liver that's a weak organ. So you identify which organs are a part of this microtumorism or chimerism that you're trying to work on. The next thing we do is we find out what foods are related or brought this to your system or are trapped in that system. So those are things like wheat, gluten, corn, dairy, nightshades, eggs, soy, citrus, sugar, chocolate. It could be medications, alcohol, shellfish, and other. So think about latex. You hear about latex allergies a lot. So that was a big list. Let me kind of give it again because I kind of went a little fast. I'm sorry. So wheat, gluten, corn, dairy, nightshades, eggs, soy, citrus, sugar, chocolate, medications, alcohol, shellfish, and other. And I gave the example of latex. So an example of this is I was working with a client that at age 21, he developed severe digestive issues. And so he got a really bloated stomach, and he didn't know that, I was like, well, I didn't really eat anything different. I don't recognize anything. Well, it really showed up as this generational issue. So as we were talking and learning about his family history, we discovered that his grandmother had been 21 and had been in a concentration camp at age 21. And so she developed, wheat allergies. And so sure enough, he did also. So I thought that was a very interesting how actually at the age it got passed down. And a lot of times it will happen at an age specific, or it'll happen with a trauma specific. So those are two things to look for. So the next thing we do is we clear off these foods off the organs, glands, and tissues that we had just discovered. Or it could be more than what you had discovered before with your list of microtumorism organs. And the idea is that the mitochondria is the mind of the cell. And so we're clearing it off of the cells that are getting reproduced. The next thing we do is we find a toxin field that this person was born with that is blocking the healing. Okay, so there may be things like other ingestants that you might need to, like a lot of times I just count what they are. I don't necessarily have to go back and find out exactly what that ingestant is. So we're looking for, other frequencies of ingestants, other inhalants. A lot of times mold will show up here. Contactants, injectants, a lot of times will show up because of immunizations and things like that from childhood that drive this. So once you have your list, again, you're just kind of clearing it off of those organs, glands, and tissues. Typically found at the beginning. The last piece is what we do is we find out what is the generational trauma that came in, that got transferred. And even though if it may be a physical component, let's say like the anger or like the liver had a generational issue or is the weakest organ because you have like, detox well and things like that. There's usually there is always an emotional component or a non-physical component to that issue, okay? So that's what you're looking for. And I think it's interesting that, the Bible talks about how, there's 7 sins of the 7 generations back. And so the longest or the farthest back that I've been actually found a generational back was 25 generations. And it was a very deep-seated issue that I had to deal with. But typically, I would say most generation back are 1, 2, 3, and occasionally 5. So I find that kind of interesting. So, so the one that's for me that I have to work on every so often is that there is 5 generations back. There's a lot of generations that go back to that because of a specific trauma that happened 5 generations back. Okay. So when you're looking at that non-physical component, what you're doing is you are asking, how many generations back is it? Who was involved? Dad's side, mom's side, and then, from mom and dad's side, sometimes it's helpful to go mom, dad's side. So, and like I said, if 25 generations back, I don't think you need to go that far, but just finding maybe 2 back is helpful. What age did this trauma take place or this generational issue that you're working on? Was it a trauma? Was it an emotion? Was it a belief that got transferred back? I'm not good enough. The world's not safe. And is it an intention? Now, we deal all the time with quantum techniques of what are traumas, emotions, beliefs, and intentions. I didn't get my list out to kind of what was an intention. me see if I can pull some up on my phone, just so you have like an idea of what we're kind of talking about with intentions. There's a lot of them, and so a lot of times I don't have one that just kind of comes to mind. So one would be to control the future by suffering now, avoid emotions, to protect myself, to be in pain, say no to others. So there's just a lot of those. And so sometimes it is helpful to, when you're working on generational issues, to work with a practitioner like me to get at maybe a couple of those deeper level intentions. But I hope that by giving you some, you can kind of see where those intentions are going. And then how they're different than some like beliefs. Beliefs we kind of label into beliefs about self, others, the world, and God. So you have so far this little group of things you've kind of collected here. So we always like to ask, do I need to know more? Or do we have the full connection of all that is going to be able to get at what the issue is and to let it go? A lot of times, sometimes what we need to know is how old, we know what the age, okay, I guess trying to explain this here. Okay, so we have the original age of when that trauma started, okay? So the next thing we do is that's like what the generational is, you know, how far back, all that kind of stuff. But then we're kind of going to you and saying, for you, what was your age when this downloaded into you? So it could be the same age, it could be a different age, just to kind of depends on that trauma and what the situation is. And typically you'll find it's the same list of stuff. And so a lot of times we used to kind of go back and say, okay, is there a different belief and stuff like that? But we found that once we've found that core thing, it's just downloaded and then we can clear it all together as a group. So a little technical, but I try to keep it kind of simple. So now that you kind of know what we're finding and how it's connected and what we're working on, so how can you do this kind of simply for you to kind of have some homework to work on this? So the first thing is to make a list of the repeating health issues that you think might be generational. Next thing is to make a list of the things that you think you're repeating that are emotional and behavioral. And that way you kind of have a list of what to work on and what you can kind of see is adding up. And a lot of times, you know, you just kind of keep a list of, oh, that's a thought I have a lot. I wonder if that's a generational issue. So when you're doing this, think about the categories we talked about. So those could be family, financial, behaviors, addictions, and diseases. I'll give those again, because I like categories. So family, financial, behaviors, addictions, and diseases. So this makes your mind and body aware that these generational components are in your life instead of just something that started with you. Now, this is not intended to be, you know, like, oh, look, you gave this to me. It's not a victim thing whatsoever. It's kind of like the same principle of when you buy a new car and then you start noticing everybody has that same car. So it's like what you're doing is you're just kind of identifying to your mind, your subconscious, be aware of this. Like, oh yeah, I thought it when I had this situation, and then I had it when I had the same thought when I had this situation. And so, or you're just aware of how many times you literally repeat that in your mind. And I think that helps you know, this is where it came from. Maybe this isn't me. This got, you know, transferred with my DNA. And so I can actually let that go. So it's actually more of an empowering thing. I had some other phrases here that I found interesting because I do think that they are kind of generational for me. So that was like, put your shoulders back. Stop sucking your thumb. I'm not good enough. I'm a failure. Those are things that I've noticed, not so much in my own life, but in people that I've worked with that are close to me, where I can see it kind of repeating generational wise. So there's 2 test points that is helpful to kind of anchor in when you are trying to work on clearing this for yourself. And I think it's just helpful because that might be able to kind of weed some things out. And if there's one that's really stuck, then you can call us to work on it, or we can do the whole thing. But I think the important thing is to be aware and just don't feel like you're kind of being washed by your thoughts, your ideas, your beliefs, but you're actually part of, hey, I'm growing myself here, and I'm being responsible for what I find. So the 2 touch points are the hippocampus, and that's bringing awareness to the body. The second one is the thymus, right on the sternum, and that's your immune system. So you think back of what we just talked about, you're identifying to the body how this came in, what's here, what you're dealing with, and then you're clearing off your immune system, creating all those diseases and things that may be generation. So I think that's fascinating. Sorry, my phone's gone off. So now that you've found that and kind of touched those 2 points to kind of anchor it in and to clear it from the body, I always think it's good to follow it up with a code. So one of the codes that's really easy to use is just put that in the trauma code and say, okay, I'm releasing this by reading the trauma code. Also, if you've had any of those, foods, inhalants, contactants, injectants, you could read the QT basic codes, which are ingestants, inhalants, contactants, and injectants. And so that would just make it a little bit stronger that you're releasing that food from that area. And kind of getting a thought here, we talked about how a lot of times you do have food allergies. Okay, we talked about the pollen allergy. And so will this completely get rid of let's say a weed allergy? I wouldn't say it does. But what it does is it breaks the generational issue that's connecting that to your body. Now, the reason I say probably not is because wheat nowadays has so many other chemicals in it, glyphosate, GMO, that it's just not as good for our body as it used to be. And so, if you were to do this scan, let's say back in 1990s, you might not have as much issue and you could clear it. But there's just so many things. Now, this will help with selfish, help with, addicting to alcohol. Corn, it's still a little because it has a lot of those chemicals in it. Sugar, those are all things that you can definitely decrease quite a bit. And think about wheat, you're actually decreasing your desire for wheat, or that need to have that, or your reaction in your body. So I think that the reaction will go down and things like that. So that's the things that I've seen. But it's just not going to be one of those things where, you can just have all the wheat in the world again. So I just kind of want you to be aware of kind of what you're doing to clear that. So reading those codes to kind of anchor that in, clear that up, that will really help. And then you, like I said, you've got your list of the physical and then the non-physical. And a lot of times when you're doing a QT session after this, to really clear if there's anything that's still lingering that you want to work on, and really clear it at a deep level, make sure we got all layers of it. A lot of times we don't have to we can do the full list. In other words, let's say there's 4 on this side and 3 on this side that are all kind of linked together. And so your body will tell us how much we can work on, and whether what's too fast or not enough that needs to help to clear it, those kind of things. And I will have to say, we typically on this don't find any die-off issues that we really have. So I think that's exciting. I remember there's one summer where what we found is that we can do this, but we can do it not only for ourselves, but if we're clearing us, we're helping the next generation down. So there's a generational component of we're healing below. And then there's also a component of like, well, if I identify that, I can clear it for up above. So let's say my mom is still living, and so I can help her clear this from her field, and I can clear my son's field. And so it's kind of like a multi-generational code. So one summer I spent clearing a lot of these same things a lot. Now, you're lucky we had this whole, we had to touch a bunch of spots. And so I kept spending the whole summer really tapping a lot of points. So I'm making it very simple. All right. So if you're wanting to get the codes of the QT basic codes, you can let me know in the chat, and also the trauma code. If you do not have that, you can send me in the chat here, or you can send me an email at jody@quantumtechniques.com, and I can send you those codes so you'll have those. And they're good for everything. In other words, you can read them for any trauma, not just this one and for all. The basic codes are for helping for any time you come across you've eaten something bad and you want to clear that. Next month, I'm going to be teaching a mastermind on the 6 easy steps to take to get your health back on track. And so that's going to be a fun thing, because it really helps kind of just look at the different things that are helpful to do for your body that are simple but make a huge difference. So let me know in your chat if you would like that. And you can send me an email also at jody@quantumtechniques.com. All right, so I've got Katrina here. You would like us to send that to you, so I will. So if you could put your email in the chat, that will help me, because I will pick that up and then I can send that to you. So what do I do at Quantum Techniques? And I don't know how familiar Katrina, you are, and other people watching are with Quantum Techniques. But what I do is I help you get clarity, to be energized, and to live in peace. I help you discover what's at the root cause of your health issues. So today we talked about maybe there's a generational component, maybe there's a food that's a component. We help you find what that is and at the root cause. And we do that by doing muscle testing to find those toxins. So they could be foods, they could be smells, they could be mold in your environment that you're not aware of. That's why I have this little tickle in my throat, because I had to clean up some mold in my office today. So we find what of those foods and inhalants are impacting your health and not allowing your body's natural ability to get itself back. So I work a lot of times with people that have non-healing issues, where they basically said, hey, I'm tired of this and I want my life back, after visiting doctor after doctor. Or they have, basically the doctor said, maybe it's in your head, and those are our typical clients when it just kind of reached their wits end and not know where to turn. Then we can start with muscle testing, trying to answer those questions so that you kind of know where they're coming from and what you can do about it. So I'd love the opportunity to work with you or someone that's really struggling with their health and wanting to work on their health and happiness. I have a special offer where I work with people that are new to Quantum Techniques for 60 minutes for $300 to have a one-on-one consultation, so we can really kind of get to the issue, the bottom of these issues, and find the root cause. So there's lots of ways that you can connect with what we do and learn more about health. The first one is our website. If you want to learn more about what's behind Quantum Techniques and how it works, you can visit our website at quantumtechniques.com. I have a YouTube channel that I'd love you to subscribe to, and I get a lot of different videos, and they obviously more short, with different subjects on different health topics that really help you know how, what the extent of what we do and things like that. And it's definitely not extensive, but it really helps you kind of like, oh, I hadn't thought about that, that kind of thing. So that's Jody Colegrove at Quantum Techniques. I also have a Facebook page, which is for health and happiness through muscle testing. And so I give a lot of different features, a lot of videos on there, and just lots of information with staying positive, staying in a good mindset. And that's really important that your health to not try to take on the negative. And that in our world today, that's definitely a struggle. I also have a Facebook book group, and that is called Health Puzzle Academy. So those are all ways that you can stay connected and learn more about what Quantum Techniques does. So I would open up for questions. If you have any questions about what we've talked about today, and if you so let me know, Katrina, if you have some questions that I can help answer about what we've talked about today or anything that wasn't clear. You're welcome to unmute yourself and ask any questions, or ask it in the chat if you'd like to. Sometimes people are at work, and so we have to honor that they're trying to listen to this and work at the same time. So I understand that. And I try to think of different things that I have come in contact with, the different stories, what you can clear and how it can impact you. So I think all those are trying to answer some of the questions that even came up from my own mind on that. And if you're watching the replay, you're welcome to send me your questions too. Maybe something that I hadn't thought about. And as you're listening to this, you also have some questions. So feel free to send me an email at quantumtechniques.com. So I just think it's really important that you discover the root cause of your health issue so that you can get clarity, be energized, and live in peace. It's just really my desire for you. So again, you can send me an email at jody@quantumtechniques.com. Each month I do a Zoom meeting that talks about different health topics and help you know how to get your health and happiness back. So I look forward to seeing you again next month. And I just appreciate you attending today. And it's great to have you here. So thanks, guys. Have a blessed rest of the week.